I'm just gonna give a little bit of a general overview now of what I'm gonna talk about today, and the title of the workshop is thriving in the virtual environment, but it's really more about me trying to give you a little bit of advice on how to make the best out of what you have now and out of the instruction that you can get. And hopefully maybe point out a couple of advantages that we have in this format that we wouldn't have in real life. There's a lot of disadvantages. I am perfectly aware of that, right? But we have a couple of chances that we didn't have before. So before I move on and talk about these things, about the different parts of the workshop that I wanna do with you, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I am a classical guitarist from Romania/Germany. And I came to India for the first time in 2018, where Veda helped me play in Kolkata. It was wonderfully helpful of her. And I organized a tour of India together with my friend Aditya Gandhi from Ahmedabad. We toured as a duo because he was donating his guitar to my charity project in West Africa, my music charity project. He was donating a beautiful Ramirez guitar. So I went and I picked it up personally because it was really, really, really hard to get expensive guitars into Nigeria. It's really difficult, unfortunately, for a lot of different reasons that we don't have time to get into. So we found out that it was actually cheaper and easier for me to literally go to India, pick it up and bring it over. So with like 5 weeks before, I basically emailed everybody that I knew in India, that he knew, that my friends, my other friends knew, and we organized this 6-city, 7-concert tour of India in 2018, which was a lot of fun. And that's when I first got into contact with the organizers of the Kolkata Guitar Festival too. But most importantly, as everybody else, in March of this year, I was on vacation, on spring break, when everything got locked down. And all my concerts were canceled around the world. My tours, I was supposed to be visiting my now fiance, then girlfriend, for 6 days in her hometown in Texas. And I ended up staying 4 months and a half because flights were canceled, and there was no reason for me to be back at home. So in that time, obviously, none of my concerts were happening, and everything, all of my performing work, which was most of my work, was postponed or completely gone. And so I've redirected all my energy that I would have spent making concerts happen on learning how to be a better teacher and performer and student in the virtual format that we are all in right now. And so a lot of that was, learning about how to use things and researching what to use specifically. And a lot of it was, something that I'm very, very open and honest about, is that I had a lot of help. So I had help from the German government, who gave me a scholarship for affected, musicians. I had help from Tonebase, the fabulous Californian startup that I am now working for. And with a little bit of funds from them, actually a lot, I bought a bunch of devices that I'm using to make this happen right now that you see. But in the process, I didn't start having all this. And I'm still learning to this day, many months after this started happening. And I've been learning a lot and reading and researching a lot about how to get the most out of online lessons and live streams, with sort of within the budget of what is of what we have to our availability. And obviously everybody's situation is different, but I very much understand what it means to not have things, right? Because that's how I started out as well. And interestingly, one of the things that I do now I've been hired by Tonebase to do their live streams. I'm head of live content at Tonebase. And so I do my own workshops, but also I host other people, right? And hosting other people means basically we're on a Zoom call together, and I'm interviewing them, and I'm talking to them, finding out interesting things about them, and streaming that to our server, right? So for example, if I was now to talk to Veda, I could press this button. Oh, it's gone. There we go. And I could have a dialogue with her right here, right? I could just have her be full screen if I wanted to do that, right? So these are the kind of things that I do for Tonebase right now, and I've been learning how to do this the whole time, basically. With working with these teachers around the world, with my guests, obviously they don't have the studio equipment that I have in my house, so I have to basically work with them to make them able to stream in the maximum possible quality, because being on Tonebase, we have a sort of quality requirement, right? We have to be above a certain level. Everything has to look good, right? So I'm the one who has to make sure that it does look good. So I've been learning a lot about this, and of course, I've been using this for myself for my own performance. I just want to, show that I can also play guitar. I have a couple of different mics. I have a guitar mic, a voice mic, and obviously the purpose of what I do is mostly, educational and entertainment. So basically, I help people, learn more about guitar, about technique, topics that I would actually much rather be talking about than live streaming. But I think live streaming I can help more with right now, just because everybody's using it to get all of their lessons, right? So I mostly work as a guitar teacher and performer, and I'm still much better at guitar than I am at doing video stuff, right? But I do think that I understand the very particular needs that a musician has, who wants to take music or give lessons or play concerts or those things, right? So today I'm going to talk about basically three different things. The first two are really the meat of them, the meat of things. First one is the technology. How can we use the things that we have at our disposal right now to get the best possible video and audio feed for our lessons? And two, I want to talk about best practices for actually taking those lessons. And on that topic, I will teach you a couple of things that you can really apply without having to buy any technology, right? Because that's, I think, the most interesting part. So I'm going to leave that actually for the second half of the session today, because that's the one that I really think everybody should apply. And I'd rather start with the technological background, is like the technique in guitar playing, and then I'll get to the to the best practice in actual online lessons, which is kind of like the musicianship part of playing a concert or teaching guitar, right? So I'm going to talk to you initially about a couple of things regarding the technology of how I do what I do. Obviously, as you can see, I have a lot of lights and a lot of things, and my camera looks good. And there's no secret to the fact that the more money you spend on things, the better they will look. But where you spend this money is incredibly important. And even if even if you don't have anything to spend, if you're able to sort of go to somebody's house who has better technology than you, what are the things that you should pay attention to in order to get maximum quality of what you're doing? We're going to go through the hardware and software things first, and then we're going to go to the best practices. So when you think of online lessons, what's the first thing you think about? I don't know if you want to type it in the chat or something, but I'm curious what you guys think. What is the first thing you think you have to improve to get a better quality experience? Internet, that's very good. That's a comment from somebody, very good. Any other ideas? Camera, okay, very good, very good. Sound, very good. Mic, nice. Mic, nice. Sound quality, that's it. Audio quality, that's it. Okay, so you guys got it. This is the trick. I tried to trick you and I couldn't. You're too good. Most people say camera or internet, It's actually sound. And we tend to think that this is because we are musicians and that we have to work with music because sound is important because we work with music. But in reality, sound is important in any kind of video making that you might be doing, right? So it's really unbelievable. If I give you a video in poor quality video, if I give you a piece of media that has audio and video and the video is bad, you are generally going to be able to watch it, even if you are not going to have the best experience unless it's really good. So if I lower the quality on the video that I'm feeding you, you will get. It will take a long time for you to have a bad time watching it, to be like, this is unwatchable. I can't do this, right? But if I give you bad audio, that comes through so much more obviously. And this might be really simple, and this might be something that all of you know, and I promise that we're not just going to spend time on this. I just want to set some priorities on what is important and what is the most important out of all things, and where can we concentrate our efforts the best. Maybe all of you already know all of this, in which case, great, we'll just focus on the second half. I am happy if all I'm saying is completely useless because you're already doing it. So if that's the case, perfect. I'm happy. I'm the happiest if nobody takes anything away from this lesson because you already know all of this, right? But maybe along the way I can give you a couple of tips, right? So let's start actually by looking not at my own words, but at somebody else's words. Let's look at YouTuber Hank Green. He's one of the founding fathers of vlogging online, and let's see what he has to say about this topic.
Let's go. First, lighting matters more than your camera. This is what I look like on my webcam with just the...
Okay, sorry. That is not the place that I wanted to go. Let me just explain really quickly. Sorry, I went to the wrong moment in my video when I started it. What I was going to say next is, sound is more important than video, and in video itself, lighting is more important than camera, right? So let's actually let him talk about this. I have another short video snippet of about 1 minute of other people giving you the same advice that I'm giving you, but presenting it in a way that I can't do on the fly right here. All right, so let's actually listen to Hank and see what he has to say. Let me just rewind a little bit.
Let's go. First, lighting matters more than your camera. This is what I look like on my webcam with just the normal lights in my office. And now I will plug in my light, hit the brightest light you can, and put it like a 45 degrees off center from you, so it's shining on one side of your face. The other side of your face will be lit probably by just ambient room light. Second thing, audio also matters more than video. So talk fairly loud. Like, this is not my normal speaking voice. If you can afford to drop $40 or $50 on a mic and a light, I've put some links in the descriptions to cheap ones that are good. Third, fairly basic, arrange your screen so that...
Okay, right. So that's one guy talking about this, and here's another pro streamer, a person who does this professionally, saying basically the same thing. I just wanna give a little bit of weight to my advice, just to make you really believe that what I'm saying comes on the backs of people who do this very professionally, and sometimes actually make a lot of money out of it, right?
When you're getting into filming videos, it's so easy to obsess over the camera and the lens and getting that perfect, super high resolution, fantastic image. The camera is not the most important piece of equipment you have. It's not even the second most important piece to making a good video. The industry standard of the 3 most important elements of a good looking video is first, audio, second, lighting, and third, camera. And let me demonstrate. Okay, what you're looking at right now is a $5,000 camera setup, a $3,000 camera, $2,000 lens, but I'm using my room light and I'm using the microphone that's built into the camera. My guess is you're probably not enjoying this very much right now. This shot was actually taken just on my iPhone, but it's got nice lighting and a microphone in front of my face. Go ahead and just put in the comments down below which one you'd rather watch, A or B. This one obviously being B because it's second, and that just makes sense. Even if we'd added nice lighting to the last shot, bad audio makes you so aware that you're watching a low production video that it just sucks you out of the experience. A good video makes you feel like you are a part of the content, and good audio is the thing that sucks you into that experience. I mean, I think we can all agree that a good camera is a good camera, and this shot does look better than the phone, but the camera in my rig was the most expensive of those 3. About a $5,000 camera setup, $400 mic, $200 in lights. Focus on audio and lighting and just use your phone for a little bit. Your wallet will thank you, and so will your audience. The very last one I want to talk.
All right, so this is obviously slightly different because he's only talking about live streaming and not about actually being both a student, being a student that has to, give video and audio out, but also receive it. When you talk about lessons, about guitar lessons in particular, actually, the phone option is not as good, although your camera on your phone is better than your camera on your laptop in general. You actually don't usually want to use your phone if you have an alternative for a number of different reasons. The first one, the most important one of which being that you cannot make all the software settings work in Zoom or whatever other software you're using for communication, and you cannot plug in an Ethernet cable, so an internet cable. There are adapters, but generally you can't plug an internet cable into a phone unless you hack together a solution that's fairly complicated. Okay, basically what I want to tell you about, what I really want you to take away from this for the hardware part of this, the most important thing, I'm spoiling the surprise right away. I want you to take away from it that light is more important than camera. And I want you to know that mics are more important than everything. The mic and the audio quality just trumps everything else, right? So I'm using my tablet now to demonstrate. That's great if your teacher has this. If they don't, that's absolutely fine. You can do a great job teaching without this as well, right? Okay, so that's just really important because people tend to be really self-conscious about the cameras that they have. And that's usually not what matters. and it's not going to improve your experience a lot. So what should you do? I've told you a lot about what does not matter as much as we think it does. Well, in my experience, there are a couple of hardware things that you should spend time on and a couple of organizational things. This is not even yet the second half of the workshop where I will talk about best practices. This is still the first half, right? So even the first half is divisible in two sides, right? So what are the best things that you can spend your energy and hard-earned money on? This might be really obvious for you, or it might be really, really basic. But the number one thing is an internet cable. If your laptop has an internet cable, plug it in. And if it, an internet cable port. And if it doesn't have an internet cable port, then buy an adapter. Adapters are really, really cheap. I know that everything is a little more expensive in India, but adapters are worth it. An internet cable, here's the funny thing. The actual final speed that you get through a cable as opposed to Wi-Fi is not that different. So you'll get almost the same speed through Wi-Fi in general nowadays, unless you have an amazing connection. But it's not going to be so stable. And that's what matters when you teach online lessons, or when you take online lessons, or when you do live streams. So you want the cable not necessarily for the speed, but for the stability of the connection. So the number one device that you should have for online lessons is a cable. That is incredibly important and very, very often overlooked. Again, sorry if this is really basic for you. We're going to power through the hardware questions. We're going to go to the software and organizational things in a bit. And then we'll talk about other things. What's the second most important thing? Again, something that is probably really obvious, and that's something that actually I can see that most of you are using, and this is headphones. No matter if you use earbuds, these are like $20, they're very cheap. No matter if you buy, if you have earbuds or the bigger, fancier stuff that I have here, they are both really, really useful. And the reason for that is that with headphones, you can disable echo cancellation. Zoom and all of these other pieces of software that you would be using for online lessons have echo cancellation, which is really, really useful because you don't want feedback from the other side of what is being said. If you have headphones, you can disable that, and that creates a much better sound quality. Not only because there is less, it feels less unnatural, but also because when you have a conversation with somebody, what these apps basically do is they mute the person that is not currently speaking in order to disable feedback loops. So they try to realize who is it that's speaking right now, and then they mute that person so that their audio doesn't feed back into the first person, the one who's actually speaking. And when you have a back and forth with somebody, especially in a lesson situation, what happens is that the person who's speaking changes a lot because the teacher says, do this, and you do, I don't know, and the teacher goes, no, do this, and you're like, oh, is it? No, it's still not. Right? So you have a lot of back and forth between the teacher and the student, meaning that the software is going to have to figure out really quickly who is not talking, right? And it was mute and unmute people around you in almost real time, but not quite real time. And it's amazing how much of a negative effect this has on the perceived sound quality of what you're doing. Okay, so super important things: internet cable and headphones. That's kind of where you want to start. Now, when it comes to the audio quality, obviously the most important thing is to have some sort of microphone. Now, on your laptop, you will have a microphone that you should be able to use. And actually, I have a microphone right now in front of me that I could use. And if you want, I can make the experiment of switching to that and you'll see how unbelievably different my sound will be. Should I do it? I don't know if you guys are curious. You probably believe me already. So maybe there's not no point in doing that. But if you think that I should, let me know, and I'll show you the horrific difference that it would make if that was happening. But basically, okay. Yes, they say yes. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm gonna go to my settings, my audio settings. I hope I hope it doesn't mute me. It might mute me really quickly. All right, hello. This is now my laptop microphone, the built-in microphone. So let's play some music. Hi, hope you are enjoying this workshop. And now let's say the same thing with the other microphone. There should be a bit of a difference between these two. Right. Microphones make a lot of difference. It's incredibly important. But obviously, my microphone is really expensive. It's not this one. This is my voice mic. It's actually, I can show you if you want. I hope it's not too loud when I move it. It's a Rode NT4 that I have for the guitar. It's sort of under the table in front of me. I'm using a 2-microphone setup. You don't need to use a 2-microphone setup. If you want to, then that's great. But if you know, it's not really necessary from the beginning. But basically what I'm trying to say is you don't have to spend the amount of money that these mics cost in order to get good sound quality. In my case, for example, this guitar mic that I have is a Rode NT4, which is a really old mic. It's like 15 years old or something, maybe even more. And I basically inherited it from my first ever startup in Germany when we founded a little company that I have not been part of for a very long time. And this is one of the things that I inherited at the end because I had bought it initially as my investment, part of my investment. This is something like $500 if you were to buy that, right? Add 250 or something like that for this second microphone plus interface that I have here. It's really, really expensive. I don't expect any of you to just have $750 to spare. Maybe you do, in which case, that's great, right? Awesome. If you want to invest it in audio gear, great. But you really don't have to. So I've shown you a really extreme example now. But you can achieve the same or similar results with much cheaper things. So the cheapest thing that you can get, the best thing that you can get for a really cheap price, if you really don't want to spend much money, is something along these lines. This is a USB mic. This one in particular is the Blue Yeti. It's a little overpriced. It's still like $100. You can find things for even half this price. But USB mics are going to be somewhere in the range of, and I forgot the exchange rate with the rupees. I'm sorry about that. But they are somewhere in the range of $50 to $150. And that's, of course, it's still a significant investment, but it is a lot cheaper than any other versions. And I will tell you really quickly what the other version is. So the USB mic is a good intermediate step. It's going to take you 80% of the way. So if the laptop microphone is 0%, then that is 80% of the way, right? Not necessarily this one in particular. There's plenty of other brands. I don't know exactly what you have available in India, but the USB mic in general, you plug it straight to your computer, and it's going to be something along these lines, right? If you want something more fancy, you can get an XLR mic. This is what they use in studios. These have no price limit. They also start pretty cheap, but these go into the thousands and thousands. There's no need to go to the absolute most expensive ones, but if you do want to sort of improve beyond what the USB mic can do, then this is worth it. The problem with XLR mics is that you can't plug them straight into your computer. You will need an interface to plug them into. The most common interfaces for starting out podcasters, music teachers that work virtually, people that make their money by giving online lessons, it's something along these lines. This is the Scarlett Solo. There's many similar interfaces. This is also around $100, but if that's too expensive for you, actually here you have a lot cheaper options as well. I have a tiny little adapter that I don't know, it's somewhere in my closet. I should have taken it out. I have a really cheap adapter that works, that basically turns an XLR mic with an adapter into a USB mic. You can use that. I recommend, if you've spent the money on an XLR mic, to also get the real interface, because you don't want to have a part of the chain that's really cheap where you risk losing the quality that you've accumulated with other things. But in general, your options are USB mic or XLR mic plus interface. Now, when you teach, it's slightly more complicated because the people need to be able to hear your voice very well and you're performing very well. So you might need 2 mics if you want to get the absolute best quality, but you absolutely do not need that as a student. As a student, you can just play guitar, have it point at your guitar, and the voice, the teacher will hear you. Just shout a little louder. Now, this is, recording guitar is a whole story, a whole subject in and of itself, right? And recording anything is something that people study and take a whole lifetime to master and never really master. It's kind of like playing a guitar, right? So it's a whole art. But in general, really, really simply said, you want the guitar mic to be relatively close to your guitar. Let's say, this far to this far, somewhere around, these these distances, depending on where you are. And you generally want to point it at the bridge. The bridge is over here, right? generally want it pointing more or less here. You don't want it pointing straight at your right hand because it will make it really obvious when you have nail noise. You know, this will become really, really visible. I'm exaggerating. I'm doing extra loud nail noises, right? But so usually towards the bridge, you know, the bridge is where the guitar is most resonant, and you can tell by just playing a chord and covering the bridge. See, you can immediately make it sound louder. Covering, not covering. Wow, I touched the mic and nullified my entire demonstration. So I'm gonna play the chord, cover, and then uncover it to see how it gets louder immediately. You see? Right? So that's usually where the guitar is most resonant. This is a huge oversimplification of what you of what you should do. Okay, so let's go through a couple more things related to audio and maybe lights, and then we're gonna take some questions, and I'll continue with the rest of the talk, right? Because I still have quite a few things to tell you, right? So what I personally did myself is I had this really awesome XLR mic. And I was like, great. Okay, so I have a mic. It's beautiful. It's way beyond what I need right now, actually, much more powerful than what I require. So how do I plug it into my computer best? I could have bought one of these adapters, but it's stereo. The mic is stereo. I wanted to really have the best, you know, the best quality, but I didn't have a lot of money to spend because everything else was really expensive, right? So I actually went with something slightly unusual, maybe, although quite a few people have been using this lately. This is a Zoom H4n. This is exactly what you see right here in front of me. This is, well, I think the color is different. This one is white on the top. That one is black. But this is basically exactly what I have. There are cheaper versions of this. Mine is about $200, but there are cheaper versions of this. And what this is basically, it's a mic. It's a field mic, which is what you are hearing my voice through right now. Okay? It's a field mic, but it also is a interface. So in the bottom, you see where these cables are plugged in here. That is where my other mic goes in. So I have the second mic going into the interface. And this H4n has its own microphone here and also provides power to my mic. Some of these XLR mics will require a power source. Unfortunately, you can't plug them into the outlet. Normally, they require what's known as phantom power, which is basically power that comes from the interface or amp that you are using. This has the ability to output phantom power. So basically, this is plugged into my outlet, into the wall. And it's providing both, you know, a way for the sound to be transmitted into the computer from the other mic and also power from the other mic. So it's basically both an interface and a mic. And depending on whether I'm just going to be talking and playing, or maybe just playing sometimes if I want to record something at home, I would be using I would turn on the interface either the external mic or the built-in mic or both, right? So right now, for example, I have both. And if I stay here, if I get close to the other mic, you'll hear, oh, that gets louder, right? So I have both on right now. Okay, so this is what I use personally, and we're gonna go very soon. We'll take some questions first, and then I'll go into video and what you can do to improve video if you really want the absolute highest quality. But just because I want you to know what I do and sort of what the steps are, I just want you to know what the possible solutions are that you have. One thing I didn't talk about before, important, is light. If you have a light, if you are taking lessons in daylight, that's great. Daylight is very, very good for you, but it's not the easiest to control. And oftentimes we might have a window behind us. For example, that's a window. It's like 10 p.m. where I am right now, so you can't. There's no light outside, but that's a window. If I didn't have these super thick curtains and my light in front of me, then light would be coming from behind me and it would make me very, very difficult to see. So if you can rely on daylight, it's good, but it's generally not going to be the best result you can get. The best thing is if you can get a light, basically the brightest light you can get, shine it straight into your face or straight into your guitar. What I have is what's pictured here. This is a newer ring light. It's used by a lot of YouTubers. I'm actually slightly hacking it. It's not supposed to be used the way I'm using it. I don't have it exactly in front of the camera. I have it a bit to the side. This is, by the way, the first guy I showed you told you how you should light yourself at 45 degrees from your face. That's good advice in principle, unless you're using a ring light. The ring light is supposed to light you from the front, and it's a pretty significant exception from that rule. Generally, you don't want front lighting; you want side lighting. But the ring light gives this smooth, smooth feel if you put it right in front of you. Unfortunately, it also gives glare on the guitar because the guitar is a shiny object. So if I just pointed it straight at me, you would get this. The whole time you would be seeing this. And it's really difficult. It was really hard when I first started streaming to get this not to happen. It would happen all the time. And after a lot of experimenting, what I did was, instead of putting the camera inside the ring light, normally you would put it inside the ring light right here. Instead of putting it in this adapter here, I have my ring light here and my camera just off to the side a little bit, just by a tiny bit, right? And this helps with the glare. All right, but basically you want some sort of light. You don't need to have something specialized here. I'll show you something else. So I have the newer ring light. By the way, I will give you, if you guys are interested at the end, what I can give you is a paper that I wrote on the subject of how to get the maximum quality from your online teaching and learning experience. And I've actually spent time and went through a lot of material to research it, and I wrote a paper for my doctorate. It's not it's not a dissertation. It's just a relatively short, 20-page paper. And at the end of it, it has a list of devices. It has a couple of solutions, cheap solutions, medium solutions, more expensive solutions that you can use basically right out of the box. If you get exactly these things, it will work. Most likely, though, I will tell you, since the list was compiled based on what hardware is available in the US, where I'm based right now, most of it is not going to apply 100% to you. So you would have to find equivalent things, maybe cheaper things, maybe even the cheaper solution is still a little too expensive. But if you're interested in this, then let me know. I will provide this gladly. This is the paper. Really exciting name there. Developing a balanced strategy for online music performance education via synchronous and asynchronous instruction compatible with existing end user infrastructure and technology. Holy shit. Sorry, said a bad word. But that was it's a very long and ugly title. Sorry about that. So I can give you a link at the end. Let me know right in the chat if you're interested at this. Okay, let's take some questions first of all, and then we'll move on to the next subject. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the questions that I find in the chat, and then maybe we'll have some people unmute themselves. Okay. All right. Let's do this. Ooh, there's a lot of text. Okay, let me see what is a question. Okay. Tashina Naz Khan, is pocket microphone a good option for online class or live streaming? Yes, everything is better than your integrated laptop mic. Maybe it's not as good as a professional, semi-professional solution or like a studio solution, but anything is good, which you can, you should place, like I said, not too far from the guitar, and you should make sure that you use it properly. Some of them have a gain. Right, a gain function. So basically you want to check that the volume is not turned up too much. I can demonstrate if you want what it looks like, but it's probably for the best that I don't. It's not going to make me so much louder as just distort my voice. So if you guys have access to anything like a digital audio interface, DAW or DAW, that's like, like Adobe Audition or some of the free ones like Audacity. If you have access to any digital audio workstation, then you should use it. Basically, any kind of audio editing software, you should use it to check that the volume on your mic is okay. If you don't, you can even check it in Zoom. If you go to your Zoom audio settings, you'll be able to see how far the mic goes. We're going to talk about Zoom settings in a second. But I really just wanted to mention, I forgot to mention before, doing a proper sound check and make sure that you're not, turned too loud or too quiet is going to help a lot. So if you have a pocket microphone and you have a gain slider, or if you don't, just by positioning it correctly, you will be able to achieve a much better sound than what you would through your normal, laptop or computer built-in microphone. All right, which devices for recording music? Well, Siddharth, it depends on how professional you want to go. I really don't. I can't offer any advice here because There are, you can record music on what I have on a $500 device. You can record music on a proper, proper studio hardware that could run you $20,000. It's like probably the price of a small house in a remote part of India, right? So it really depends on what your quality is. The question is a little too general for me to give a piece of advice. It really depends on what your target is. If you want to do a home recording, if you want to post something on YouTube, or if you want to, make a studio album. Generally, anything you position, closer to you than the laptop mic. And by the way, the laptop mic is bad for a number of different reasons. One of them being the position is just usually going to be pretty far from you, because when you take and do and give online lessons, you have to make sure that you are properly visible. So you see, I can even get a little closer right now, but my right hand is not cut off on the bottom. And my left hand is also fully in the picture, and my head is not cut off. Actually, the head is the one that matters least. So if I was something like this, that would still be okay. It wouldn't look quite as good, but it would be okay. So make sure you're basically far enough from your camera, whatever camera it is that you're using, that you can be seen, not in your entirety. You don't need to see it below the knee, but basically the right hand. So many times, even on the people that I host on Tonebase for live streams, just have the camera positioned in a way in which this entire section is cut off. And as a student, as a teacher, if a student comes to me with that, I'm gonna ask them to move the camera, right, or to move themselves, because it's just not productive to do lessons like that. So that's one reason why the laptop mic is not good, just because it's going to be further from you. But another much more important one is that it's encased in your computer. So when the fan turns on, or it gets louder, you're going to hear that enormously. And it's just generally just a pretty bad device, right? So yeah. How do you tell a good interface? Ooh, that's a good question. Anything made by Zoom, which is what I have here. Zoom, by the way, is not the same as the software company. It's a completely different brand, right? Anything made by Zoom is pretty reliable. They do the sort of sturdy, resisting things. They're not pretty, as you can see. It's like it looks like an army tool, right? But it holds, right? It's not pretty, but it's reliable generally. Anything that's above a certain price is probably going to be pretty good, pretty reliable. And by the way, a proper studio mixer is also a type of interface. So if you want to go the other end, I don't imagine that you will, have that kind of money to spend right now. But who knows? If you want to get a proper studio mixer with like a bunch of different input channels and and knobs, obviously you can. That has a USB out, and you can connect it to your computer as well. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. Anand says, don't people use these for interviews and stuff? Yeah, they do. Also field recordings, it's great because it records all around you, which is not what you want normally in a guitar mic. It's pretty good for voice. So, it's a stereo mic, and I can actually, I'm set to not stereo on Zoom, so you won't be able to hear it, but it has like stereo panning. So as you do this, if you're not set to mono like I am now, then you will be able to hear that. But yeah, absolutely they do. Okay, Siddharth says, in the Wi-Fi modem, does the angle of the antennae make any difference to the net speed? Not that I can tell. Generally, you don't want to be using Wi-Fi. If you can, buy a cable. I understand if it might be really difficult to plug it into your computer. Maybe it doesn't have, maybe you don't have the port. But no, from my experience, it doesn't make too much of a difference. If you do have to use Wi-Fi, try to get it as close to your computer as possible. And try to make it really exposed. Like, don't put it behind books. It's Wi-Fi is electromagnetic waves, which light is also an electromagnetic wave. Obviously, if you put it behind the book, the light won't pass, and the Wi-Fi still will, but it will get significantly weaker. So make it, imagine that the Wi-Fi needs to see the computer, the router needs to see the computer to work best. Doesn't need to see it, but if you follow that kind of general idea, you'll get better quality. I do really urge you to consider getting a cable. Okay, Shristi and Siddhartha say please share. I will. Okay, I'll share it at the end. I might just send it to Vera, and she'll send it over to you guys if you want. And Rakteam says, I know this is not strictly a recording workshop, but can you give a short overview of a good recording setup, mic, DAW, interfaces, etc., and sound editing recommendations would be really helpful. Or if you have some reading material, can you share afterwards? Yeah, actually I do. I have a great solution for you. So on Tonebase, on the startup that I'm working with, my friend Martin Zimny, my fellow host from Germany, and one of my best friends, who also helped me, by the way, when I was putting together the tour of India in 2018, he is a co-host now. And so we do live streams, and he had a live stream on recording yourself for home recordings. And it's 2 hours long, and it's on this topic. And unlike the other tone-based streams, this one should be accessible for anybody. So you shouldn't need an account to watch it. If it turns out, if I give you the link and it doesn't work for you, let me know. I'll have to talk to the team, because that one should be free, right? Yeah, so I have a 2 hour long session for you on that. Yeah, okay. And Siddhar said, please tell about recording for YouTube album from cheap to professional. Okay. That's a very good starting point, what I will recommend. But generally, yeah. So I kind of have been talking about setups, from home to professional. Name of the artist. I'll give you a link at the end, so you won't have to remember the name. His name is Martin Zimny. It's my friend from Germany. He's hosting these live streams. So Martin Zimny. But I'll give you a link at the end. In fact, I can probably put it in the chat. But the chat will die once the meeting is no longer live, which is why I want to send it, to Veda or something, and then she can forward it to all of you. Because if I put it in here, whoever is watching on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere else won't be able to access it. And also you guys, if you don't click on it before the meeting is over, it's just gonna disappear. So I'll send you some info. Uroš Baric also has some videos on recording. Yes, absolutely, and he's great. So absolutely, shout out to Uroš. Yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah. So I've basically been giving an overview of recording options. Like I was saying, first step is get a USB mic. Second step, get an XLR mic with an interface. Third step, replace the interface with a proper mixing console. Buy a good DAW. The free one that everybody is using nowadays is Reaper. Reaper is I think it's 100% free. I'm not sure if you have to if they ask for donations or anything. I don't think so, but Reaper, I'm putting it in the chat right now, is a free DAW, a digital audio workstation. I personally I've been using Adobe Audition. That's not free. That's very expensive. Actually, I get it for free. Yeah, so Reaper, you can use it for free as long as you want. Exactly. Yeah. So that's one option. Reaper costs 5K in India. Really? Does it? Are you sure? Can you use a VPN to download it? I'm not sure that's allowed. I hope I'm not giving you ideas on how to pirate it, but I think you should be able to use to download it. It's free. Yeah, it's free. SoundForge. I used SoundForge back in the day in Romania, like 15 years ago. It's okay. It's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's okay. The quality of your recording is not going to fail with your DAW. That's not what's going to matter in the end. So Reaper is a good freeware one. Audition is a good paid one. What else? Audacity is a very cheap one, very easy. If you want something that, if you don't want to deal with learning a DAW, Audacity is the super basic thing that you can, anybody can press the record button and record themselves, right? So yeah. That's it. And what else? Do we have any other questions? Does anybody want to unmute really quick? I know that we're supposed to only go 90 minutes and there's a lot of material to cover, so I don't want to spend too long. But maybe somebody can ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. So I had a couple of questions. One is are you using a mic generally on mic versus stereo?
Man, I could not understand you. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat it or maybe put it in the chat? Or now I think I can hear you better. Okay.
Right. My question is, are you using a single mic or what are you generally on one?
I'm using a stereo mic because I have a stereo mic, but I don't need a stereo mic because I am a single instrument. So there's no need. I don't spatially use movement in my performance artistically. So I have a stereo mic just because I happen to own it. But you don't have to spend money on that, unless you have a particular reason to do so. That would be my advice in general. Oh, his voice is echoing. That's my fault. I'm so sorry. Because I was showing you the videos. I'm sorry, guys. That was me. I was showing you the videos of the examples that I had before, and for that I had to basically feed desktop sound back into you. Now it shouldn't happen anymore. So I'm sorry, that was on me.
I had a follow-up
But I understood. Yeah.
regarding your headphones. You said we need headphones. So what exactly have you plugged your headphones into? Is it the interface? And then what do we do with them?
No. Right now I have them plugged into my computer. And I have you. So my setup is actually quite complicated. Would you like me to do a little scheme of what I'm doing with my setup?
Yeah, that
Or
would be
actually,
great.
you know what? What I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about camera stuff, which I was going to talk about as the next subject. And then once we've talked about both of them, then I'll make a scheme explaining exactly what I have.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. Perfect. And I see that Parameswaran Sundaram already says talk about camera DSLR versus your cell phone. Yes, that was my plan to now talk about camera stuff. So yeah, let's do that. Let's move on to that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back into the examples that I have over here. So you might be noticing that I am, not using a phone and not using my laptop camera. The laptop camera actually looks okay with the light that I have here. And that's a function of what I was, what these guides were saying at the beginning of the session. How audio is more important than video, and light is more important than camera. But there are a couple of ways that you can use, the best camera to your disposal to do the best quality stream. Generally, your phone is going to be a better camera than your laptop. And if you have a way to plug your phone into your computer and then place your phone on a stand so that it's not dangerous, it won't fall over, it's generally preferable to use a phone than a laptop camera. In my experience, though, in my personal experience, the devices that you use to connect are flaky. So there are some exceptions. If you have a MacBook and you're using an Apple phone or a tablet, they are pretty good. They're pretty good at not flaking out on you. But in general, this depends on the model of phone that you have and the kind of computer that you have. And depending on those things, you would have to find a piece of software that works for your personal setup, for your personal phone. So here, I can't really give any recommendations. For example, if you have an Apple device, like an iPad, and then a Windows computer, you're not going to be able to screen mirror directly. So I use an external app called a Power Mirror, which worked up until a point, and after a while it stopped working. I found another one. It works for some of my friends. Some of them have this thing called Virtual Cam, which works for certain types of phones. But basically, depending on what kind of operating system you have on your phone, what kind of setup you have on your computer, if you want to use your phone as a camera, I would recommend finding a way to plug it into the computer. Otherwise, I think your laptop camera, despite being less good, it offers you the possibility of working with your computer, which allows you to plug in an interface, which allows you to plug in a cable, a power cable, which allows you to do the settings right on Zoom and everything else, right? So in general, I want you to try, if you can, to use your laptop as the device that communicates information. And if you want to upgrade the camera, the first step is to use a phone. That's the cheaper option. But again, it's difficult to make it work. Sometimes it can be annoying. If you have the time, if you have a couple of hours to invest in this and really try to make it work, usually most of my friends who've done that have achieved it, and I've managed as well. But if you want the real best quality, then what you do is obviously you want to connect a real camera, right? A camera that's supposed to be a camera, that's not just a phone. So for example, in my case, I have a DSLR. I have a Panasonic Lumix GH5. That is incredibly expensive. I don't recommend that you get this one unless you are interested in photography and vlogging or documentary filmmaking. It's about $2,500, so a lot of money. And you have to buy a lens for it, and then the lens is expensive, and so that's a significant investment. But you can buy cameras for like $300, $400, $500, and they are going to be good enough. For example, this GH3, my secondary camera. This is my worst camera actually. This one, the lens is really good and impressive. That's what makes it look really, really fancy. It's the lens. But so this is a GH3, and I have a similar one, much newer version, GH5 there. It's what I'm using right now to stream. But basically, you can buy any kind of modern DSLR and connect it to a computer via a capture card. Problem is, you really should pay attention to what you get because some cameras are better for this than others. I've personally had a cheap DSLR Canon, what was it, 70D? I think it was 70D. And you know, it was a good camera. It took decent photos, very good video for its price range. But I tried to connect it to my computer via a capture card and it didn't work at all. Why? Because it didn't have two things that you're supposed to have in order to make a DSLR work like a webcam. And that is, you need a you need it to be able to output clean HDMI and to be able to stay on forever. I will write this down in a second on my iPad, but I just realized right now I forgot the intermediate step that was really important. I meant to give you 3 steps and I jumped from the first to the third without the second. So, sorry. Let me just go step back one little bit and just talk about this again. So the cheapest option that you can find is use your laptop camera, and it's usually enough. It's usually enough. If you want to upgrade, try using your phone. That's better. But there's also another one that I forgot. You can buy a fancy webcam. Fancy webcams are not necessarily very expensive. They can also be between like $100 or $200, and you can plug them straight into your laptop, and they will work. They will work immediately, basically. This, what I'm talking about now, is level 4, the DSLR, basically plugging in a proper, you know, semi-professional camera into your computer. Let me show you what a webcam. I mean, you probably already know, but I have one here. I happen to have one with me, so I'll just show you. This is my. Let's see. Where is it? Can't find it. I should have probably prepared and done this before, but I got a couple of things to show you guys. A couple of devices that we've been talking about. So let's go. Let's go and show these to you. I'm just gonna put my headphones on, although mostly you're not talking unless I ask you, so doesn't matter. But basically what I was gonna show you is this, for example. This is a C930 webcam by Logitech. It's about $100 to $200, and this will achieve basically the same video quality for live streaming or online lessons as you would get from a phone, except it won't be difficult to set up. It will be guaranteed. It was made to be used as a webcam, and therefore it works as a webcam. It's pretty simple. Just clip this on top of your computer, and you make it work, right? That's a good intermediate solution for if you want to spend $100 or $200, maybe even less if you can buy it secondhand. And by the way, that's a really important piece of advice that not a lot of people give you. Buy secondhand stuff. There are a couple of things that you don't want to buy secondhand, like batteries. If you're buying batteries for something, generally these have a finite battery life, a finite lifetime. But batteries are not something you want to do in secondhand, but most other things are. So my GH5 is secondhand. My laptop that I use for live streaming is secondhand. But okay, let's look at some other devices. So this one right here, this is a USB mic. This is probably like $50, $50. And it's really cool. It connects with an XLR here, but you can plug it. It comes with a cable that I have behind somewhere, where you can connect it from there straight into a USB. So it looks like an XLR, and you can connect it to a regular XLR interface as well, but it's actually a USB mic. It's about $50. It works. This is about $100. It's a Rode video mic. This is just the cover. That's what it actually looks like. This is what I used for my first ever few live streams. It's really good, except it doesn't work if you're too far from it. So the way that I have the guitar mic positioned, for example, it wouldn't work right now. But it has the advantage that it has a jack, just like your headphones. It looks exactly like a headphone jack. And you can plug this into a tiny little adapter like this. This is an adapter with a mic jack, headphone jack, and USB. And I can basically plug this in and then plug that into my USB. And suddenly this Rode video mic that's normally for a camera, normally this is supposed to be mounted on top of a camera, like, you know, this is the camera, and I have this on top of it, right? And you can convert that into a microphone that you can use in your lessons or live streams using that. Basically, be creative about your solutions, right? But going back to the DSLR, so how do you make it work if you want the absolute best quality? Well, in that case, you want to plug your big camera into your capture card, and that capture card, you want to plug that into your computer, right? So, two really important things that your camera must have in order for you to be able to use it as a live streaming camera are the following. It needs to have clean HDMI. Clean HDMI. So basically, when you are shooting on a camera, there's a bunch of overlays. There's a bunch of things that are also shown, like the resolution or, you know, whatever, ISO, aperture, a lot of different settings are being shown at the same time, right? If your camera has a way to shut those off for its HDMI connection, then that's good. That's what you want. If it doesn't, though, your video will have all of these unnecessary little things around that you don't want to have generally, right? So you have to make sure that the camera you buy, if you buy the camera for this especially, or if you want to use an existing camera that you have to make sure that it has clean HDMI, and you have to make sure that it has the ability to stay on, always on. This is also annoying because a lot of cameras are made in such a way that even if you select the power saving mode where it never turns off, it will still turn off. It can turn off after 20 minutes or 25 minutes, half an hour, whatever. It can turn off after a certain amount, even if you set it to not turn off at all. It's very, very annoying, but it's really important if you're going to use a DSLR for live streaming or online lessons. You can't buy something that turns off. This was on that camera that I had, that Canon 70D. That was before they released their software, which basically enables it to connect any Canon camera to a computer. Right now, by the way, you can basically connect any Canon camera to a computer directly. But it didn't have either. It would turn off, and it didn't have clean HDMI. So it was absolutely horrid. It did not work. So if you're gonna invest in a DSLR, make sure it has those two things, or you might have to send it back, right? Really important. Okay, and then what else do you need to make this work? Well, you're going to need something known as a video interface, not video interface, capture card. That's the word that I'm looking for. So a capture card looks something like this. This is the most typical one that everybody bought. It's now sold out everywhere in the world. I think they might have now finally made enough for people to buy them. This is a little bit overhyped. I don't think this is a very good capture card personally. It's just really widely used by a lot of people, but it has a USB on one end and an HDMI at one end. By the way, very important to know, this is not the same as an adapter that goes from HDMI to USB. There's many adapters like that. That's a different thing. This is not a capture card. This is an adapter that goes from HDMI to USB. So what you want is a capture card like the Camlink or different ones that actually encodes your HDMI into a type of output that your computer can basically interpret as a webcam. So don't need to go too deep into the technicalities of things, but basically if you want the absolute highest image quality, you need a capture card like the Camlink or something much more advanced, and you need to plug that into your computer. So what do I have personally? I have, where is it? Wait, let me find it. It was somewhere. I know I have it somewhere. Oh, I think I might have closed it by mistake. That is very annoying. I was sure I had it. Give me 1 second and I'll find it right away. Basically, I just want to show you a photo of what I have. Sorry about the fact that I wasn't ready. I kind of sworn, I think I might have accidentally turned it off because I swear I had it ready right at the beginning. Okay, so here we go. So I personally use an ATEM Mini. This is the ATEM Mini Pro. That's not what I have. That's a slightly more expensive version, but ATEM, A-T-E-M Mini is a wonderful piece of hardware from Blackmagic Design. It allows you to connect up to 4 different webcams 2 different microphones that you see over here, and it allows you to connect an Ethernet cable for controlling it, and it allows you to monitor it and connect it to your computer via the USB out. So this is basically, this is an amazing piece of technology. It's about $300. It's not cheap, right? $300 is basically the cheapest DSLRs are the same price as this, right? But $300 for the non-pro version that I have for just the ATEM Mini, not ATEM Mini Pro. But the thing is that it encodes basically any camera you can think of into a signal that can be recognized by your computer as a webcam. And this processing power is truly unbelievable. Like, this replaces maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, maybe even 10 though, this would have been an entire truck. There would have been an actual television truck required to do this. And it's a small device, it's about this big. It's about that size. So I personally use this, and I plug my big camera, sometimes I plug 2 cameras, into my ATEM Mini, and I plug the ATEM Mini into my computer. That's how I get the quality that you can see right here. Now, what I do is I use OBS, which is a freeware software. It stands for Open Broadcasting Software, and it's completely free. Anybody can download it. There's nothing to be paid. And OBS is basically just kind of a production studio, so it enables you to take the feeds from different cameras and different mics and graphics and things, browsers. Right now, what I'm using, for example, is I'm routing everything through OBS, right? And it allows you to resize them, place them on top of each other. You see how my video is sort of small in the corner of what I'm showing? I can move it around, I can put it wherever I want, basically, right? I can make it bigger, smaller. OBS allows you to become a producer, basically, within your live streaming or online lesson experience. And that's really, really useful because you never need to share a screen again, and you have 100% control over what's going on. So that's what I use. I route everything through OBS, and then I'm using the OBS virtual camera function to as an input on Zoom, basically. That's how I'm talking to you guys right now. It's very, very similar to what you're seeing here. All right, so we are gonna go over, I'm gonna give you that scheme of what exactly it is that I'm using, and then I'll take some more questions from you if that's okay. And then before it gets too late, we're gonna talk about the other best practices on doing lessons on online lessons, which is really not so much about technology or software. It's more about how do you work with online lessons and concerts and things in a way that that's most helpful for you. So let me do this. I haven't actually prepared the scheme, so I'm just gonna make it up as I go along. So I'm gonna try to just paint it for you on the iPad right now. Let me go back to my regular view. Okay, so what do I have? I have a guitar mic. Guitar mic, which is plugged into a interface. H4N is the name of the interface. I'm just gonna call it inter. And the interface also has a voice mic. I personally use 2. So these 2 are plugged together, okay? Then I have a camera. I sometimes use multiple cameras. I only need one for this because I'm not showing technique in this workshop. I have one that only shows, right hand position, which is really useful for when you want to, if I show you the difference between, let's say, this and this and this, you can almost not tell that anything changed. But if I have that camera on that side, it's zoomed in and it'll show you, the exact difference between and right? It shows you much more detail on the right hand specifically. So sometimes I use multiple cameras, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just pretend that I have a single camera, and I always use one. I plug the camera into the switcher, HDMI switcher, which is the same as an interface, ATEM switcher / interface. Wait, not interface. The word is, sorry. Oh, wow. The word is capture card. I keep on calling it interface. It's not a mistake that I normally do. That's strange. Okay, so I have the ATEM, And basically I plug the camera into the ATEM. So let me just put the arrows on top too. So this is important. If I have multiple cameras, let's say I have a cam 2 and a cam 3, they can all be plugged into the same device. Okay? Now, if I plug the interface straight into my computer, what I'm gonna experience is that the voice mic and this interface here is going to go into the computer faster than the video, because it takes some time for the ATEM to do its job. The ATEM is doing a lot of hard work here. It's really being worked hard, right? So it's gonna come with a little bit of a delay, and you can adjust delays in OBS. You can basically introduce a little bit of artificial delay. And by the way, I still have to introduce a little bit of artificial delay on the ATEM, but it's going to be much more synchronized out of the box if instead of plugging both of these things into the computer, I do something very smart and very different. I plug the voice mic, which has a headphone out, I plug that into the camera 1. And then I connect the ATEM into my computer. Let's say this is my computer here. I have my big streaming computer on this side. So the version, the most straightforward version would have been, as I said, to just connect this and this, both of them into the computer. If, however, I have these two connected here, the voice mic and the ATEM, I can then plug, I'm gonna actually make a thicker line so you can see it better. I can plug that, there we go, I'm gonna make a thicker line here. So I have the voice mic plugged into the camera, the output of the voice mic, which also contains the guitar mic, is plugged into the camera. And then the ATEM, which is the capture card, that's plugged into the computer. And this allows me to be much more in sync with the audio and the video. Now, on the computer, this goes through the USB out of the ATEM, and HDMI is being outputted by the camera with audio and video that goes into the capture card switcher, and from there into the computer, and they can communicate. I then use OBS on the computer. I'm gonna draw it next to it, but it's actually on the computer, so I have OBS. This is inside the computer. And OBS has a virtual camera plugin. If you're on a Windows, it will just have that plugin already. If you're on a Mac, you have to download it, it's separate. But basically, it has a virtual cam. So then OBS outputs the virtual cam. And the virtual cam is the device I use in Zoom. And this is what I am talking to you on right now. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. That's what I meant to do. This is what I'm talking to you right now. So the virtual camera outputs into Zoom, and this is where I am right now. As you can see, this is a bit of a complicated setup, right? And I don't expect any of you to have, the means to do this. I wouldn't have had the means to do this if I didn't have some help from Tonebase, some help from the German government, and some other sources. I wouldn't have been able to do this either, right? But this is, if you want absolute max quality, this is what you get. By the way, you can go even beyond this and get a studio that's worth 20,000 or more, right? This is a pretty good introduction of what sort of high-level live stream or setup can look like for your own lessons. This is especially useful if you're going to be teaching a lot, or if you're going to be talking about, or if you're going to be playing live streamed concerts. That's what I was thinking. The late hour is starting to become noticeable since it's almost 11 p.m. here in the US. All right, so now let me just, should we take questions now or should we take them later? Let me see, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Okay, let's see. Which guitar do you have? And this is a Paco Marin from Granada, from Spain. You can kind of see inside if I pointed right. The Paco Marin is a wonderful instrument that has been with me for a long time. I don't like these strings that I have on right now, but I do like the instrument a lot. like my nails greatly, but. So on. Man, my ring fingernail is not doing well, but that's okay. All right, so that's a Paco Marin. With the pandemic, a lot of camera companies like GoPro, Canon, and Nikon have come up with software plugins to stream their videos directly to the laptop this year. Yeah, so Canon has a really good one. GoPro is not something that I've ever used, but that also works. So if you want to simplify this, GoPro, by the way, secondhand GoPros make for pretty good streaming cameras. It's good that you mentioned this. That's absolutely true. It's a good sort of midway solution. So if you have I don't know exactly what model accepts it, but if you have an option of buying a GoPro, they can get pretty cheap and they will get you pretty far. If you have good lighting on a GoPro, that's actually a really good setup. And it's probably, by the way, it's probably the best for mobility for if you need to take it on tour. Not that anybody's touring much these days, but in general, it's a really good setup. So very good comment, Rack team. Very good. Vera says, we've been using OBS for most of the live stream. Yeah. And Rack team says, if you have a good interface with a built-in mic like the Sony PCM D10, I know that one. Let's say, do you still recommend using a separate mic for the guitar? Depends. If you can position the mic in such a way that both the guitar and the voice are well balanced and you can hear both, then no, you don't need more than one. But what I like about having two mics is that I can, I have them directed in the right space. And so I'm pretty free and I don't have to worry about like speaking into a certain direction to be heard, which is what happened in my first ever few live streams. I was using the Rode and I was sort of putting it midway between the guitar and the voice, and it wasn't very good. As soon as I moved, if I talked around here, it would already not really pick it up very much. Obviously, if you have the right shape, if you have the right, what's the word? What's the word for the shape? Pattern. If you have the right pattern, then it will work. All right. What headphones are you using? These are some really cool Sennheisers. I don't know the model number right now. They're also not very expensive. They're sort of midway Sennheisers. They're pretty open, so you can still hear through them. But I still don't like playing with them on. I prefer taking them off for playing because it still makes it, although they're supposed to be pretty open, it still sort of dampens a lot of what I can hear. All right. Iraq team says Hero 9 only at this point. Yeah, that's the one that allows, the GoPro Hero 9 is the one that allows it to connect it directly into the computer. And that's great. Yeah. Shantanu, what's the exact model of the Rode guitar, of your guitar mic? It's a Rode NT4. That's an old one. Rode NT4. I can write it into the chat. Let me see. Rode NT4. That's what I have. Okay. When I use a noise canceling headphones, I can't hear myself on the guitar clearly. Yes, take them off when you play. Even if you're in a lesson, when you're gonna play something, if you're just going back and forth with the teacher, okay. But when you perform anything longer than 10 seconds, just take them off. I just put them here and I tell my teacher, hey, I need to play now. So I just put them there, play, and then when I need to hear him again, I put them up again. What about Irit mic with what? With the SW and what's SW? I've never used that one, so I don't personally know. But yeah. What kind of headphones are preferred if we use headphones for making guitar videos to get a good sound quality? Well, if you're using them for videos, you don't need headphones. For videos, if you're just recording yourself, you shouldn't have headphones on, because that's gonna make the sound less natural, no matter how good and open and light they are. So if you're just doing videos, then no headphones. For live streams generally, or online lessons, you want them to be pretty open. So you can decide, you can buy, when you buy them, they have, they can be closed, noise canceling, closed, open. So the more open you get them, the better. Generally, it will help you, be more aware of what you're playing. Right. Sir, is iPad any good? It's expensive. It's good. It has a good camera. If you want to plug it, if you have an Apple computer, you can plug it into your computer pretty easily and use it as a webcam. That works. Definitely don't use the mic. Mic on the iPad is pretty bad. So if you do that, then use it as a webcam source on a computer rather than just as the device that you stream on. Yeah, I have an iPad right now for showing stuff. This is what I've been drawing on. I have it connected to this adapter, and it goes into my switcher, into my 8M switcher. And by the way, speaking of switchers, if you want the absolute highest quality experience, what I have is a Stream Deck. Stream Deck comes from from streaming. People use it a lot for game streaming on Twitch and such. And this is basically a glorified remote control. It's really expensive for what it is. I mean, it's cheap for studio standards, but the cheapest one is about $150. This is or even $100, but this is $200 something because it's a really big version. And it's basically just the thing that you plug into your computer. It has this nice fancy holder here in the back, so if you wanted to sit on the table, you can just put this in. It has a magnet and sits on the table. Basically just a remote control, but that's what I use to switch between the different scenes, or to turn on the iPad on and off, right? So that's how I can make these changes smoothly without thinking about it. But this is not something I recommend unless you're going to work in streaming, because it's too expensive for what it does. It helps you minimally be faster in your lessons. Doesn't actually help. It saves you a little time. That's it, right? So this is called right. Akash says Beyerdynamics DT990 headphones are decent open back headphones. Yeah, that's I've not used them, but I think I know. I think I've seen people use them a lot. Beyerdynamics is generally a good brand, so that makes sense. The name of what I'm using now is a Stream Deck. Again, I don't recommend. This is just me showing you what I'm doing right now, but I don't recommend getting this for online lessons, because the benefit that it provides is not big enough. I can also do the same thing in OBS, like I can switch between scenes, like this. It will take a little bit longer, but I can still do it, right? So anything that you can achieve with a mouse as well, you don't need to spend money on. If you want to spoil yourself, then by all means. I have the Stream Deck XL, the biggest one. Right, I already answered the question about the guitar. So it's Paco Marin. Rewind the recorded version of the workshop. I really want, before we finish and we take some more questions, I really want to spend a little bit of time on the other subject, which is how do you use online lessons? What do you do in online lessons to make them work? And there are a couple of things that I think are pretty obvious, but the main problem with with taking online lessons is that your internet speed and computer speed and all of that is going to have a really big influence on what you experience, and it's going to be really hard for the teacher to judge and to give you advice if they can't hear you play well. So a teacher that makes most of their money by teaching online lessons will have had the time and money to invest in a setup like what I'm describing. Maybe not as good, but something similar along these lines. A student mostly won't. Even if you do a lot of lessons online, it's mostly still less of a part of your life than it is in the case of a teacher. So it's really difficult for the teacher to hear you and to be able to know what to help you with, because of the quality of your own stream and the quality of your own connection, right? So it's really, really useful. I imagine most of you have already been doing this. If you take online lessons, or especially if you give online lessons, but if you take online lessons, insist on having your teacher listen to a recording of you play in advance. Rather than going to the lesson with the piece ready to play, spend time before the lesson and make a recording of yourself playing. With whatever hardware you have, the phone, whatever you have at your disposal, that's the best. Make a recording of yourself playing and upload it to YouTube as an unlisted video, or send it to him on his email, or her, whatever. Send it to them somehow, give it to them. Because them watching it is going to help with all the internet connectivity problems. The sound is not going to cut out. Things are not going to go bad. Things are not going to, your video is not going to freeze. Have a recording of yourself before the lesson and use that as your initial performance at the beginning of the lesson. Don't play live unless you have a really good connection, right? And in general, doing recordings is actually something that is helpful for you as a musician. First of all, recording and performing on stage are quite different things. But in general, you want to have the feeling that you're playing on stage. You want to change from that state that you have in your practice room where you can fix any mistake that you do by going back a few notes into the situation where you can't, where you have to do it, one time and that's it. And that's the situation you're going to have on stage. That's kind of the situation you're going to have with your teacher, although you're probably allowed to stop and start again with your teacher. But generally, this is really hard to achieve, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So if you record yourself regularly, you're actually going to be better at playing on stage and at playing under pressure. Practicing guitar is one skill, but practicing to play a concert is a different skill. And recording is also a different skill altogether, but it's closer to that than the skill of practicing. So by practicing with recording yourself regularly, you are going to get better at guitar. So I absolutely suggest that you require from your teacher, even if they don't ask you to, you send them those videos in advance and try to get them to watch them. You send them a video of you playing whatever piece you would normally be playing for your lesson before your lesson. And if they have a lot of time and they're nice and volunteer that, then they will watch it on their own time and they'll go to the lesson straight with help. But if they don't have a lot of time, you're going to watch that video in class together. And that's also much more valuable than if you played for them. So this is one of the small advantages that we have in the online format. Everybody's getting better gear to record and everybody's getting better at recording themselves. So that is a skill that normally we've been lacking a lot in classical guitar and in general in music, right? In classical music specifically. So you recording yourself regularly for lessons is going to improve your online lesson experience so much more. It's going to be uncomparable to anything else that you do. Worst case scenario, if your connection is horrible, you record yourself doing something, your teacher records themselves giving you advice. You record yourself playing an updated version, your teacher records themselves doing that. So another thing that happens a lot is we are used to this situation from real life teaching where the student and the teacher are in the same room. And because they're in the same room, they can't meet every 3 days because it doesn't make sense for the student and teacher to drive for 45 minutes or to take the bus for an hour, right? To see the student. It takes a lot of effort to be in the same room as somebody else. So generally, people take lessons once a week, once every 2 weeks, even once a month. But even, let's say the more common once a week lesson, it's still actually a long time to go without seeing your teacher. I know it doesn't sound like it, but a week is a long time. So instead of doing a 60-minute lesson once a week, it's actually much more productive in online lessons to do 2 30-minute lessons every 3 or 4 days, or even 3 20-minute lessons every 2 days, right? That's actually much more productive. It's normally not feasible in real life because teachers have to go to school and they're not going to be able to go there every time. But this online world lets us actually do more frequent and shorter lessons with your teacher if they're willing to accept that. If you're willing to, let's say, have you pay them the same amount of money for splitting the lesson on 3 different days, right? That's something that you might find yourself gaining more from because you have time to practice in between. So you have a lesson, you understand what the teacher wants you to practice, you practice that for 2 days, and then you show it to them again. Then you have another lesson, and you do the same thing, the same process again. You record yourself every time, and you have the teacher watch you either with you together in the lesson or before the lesson. Both have advantages, by the way. If you watch yourself playing, that's also an interesting thing, and I think you should absolutely watch the videos that you record for your teachers as well, right? But generally, recording yourself is the way to go. We are very far from a situation where people can play, in real time online lessons that feel anything like real lessons. So this is by far the greatest, more than all the technical stuff that we've been talking about. This is the second part that I wanted to mention. This is so much more worthy to think of and to try to get your teachers to do than anything else. The whole technique, the technical details of how to make your audio and video sound good, they're great, but they only work to a point. The point is still just to learn or to teach if that's what you do. But the point is to advance. And that can only be done through human connection, through learning from others, right? Because music is fundamentally a collaborative art, right? And because there's so many amazing musicians in the world that you could study with. So, you know, if you have the time and money to spend on getting a great setup, do it. I was lucky to be in this situation where I had these funds available to me that were not even really my own money, and I put them to good use. Like, okay, this is freaking fantastic. Let's do it now. You know, get everything right. My laptop is like $2,000. It would be like $3,000 if it were new, but it's like $2,000 now, right? I own so much in things, right? That I understand what difference it makes, right? At the same time, though, this guitar is $10,000. If the guitar is $10,000, shouldn't the rest of the equipment also be $10,000? What I have right now is actually just over 10,000. I basically just equaled this piece of wood. Lovingly, I'm calling it lovingly a piece of wood, is the same amount of money as that technology around me, right? So in a situation where this is important, and by the way, this will continue to be important after the pandemic. It's not like live concerts will go anywhere. Obviously, as soon as we can, they will happen again, and I'm really, really excited about them happening again. But live streaming and online lessons are not going away anywhere. Now that so many people have been exposed to this medium and have been forced to participate in it, everybody's going to be exposed to it. There's not going to be a fear of this medium. People might hate it because they might associate it with the 2020 pandemic, whatever, but it's going to be more important. Live concerts will continue exactly the same way that they've continued before. People were afraid, you know, in the early days of television that, oh, television is going to replace live concerts. It hasn't happened. It won't happen. It's a very different experience to go to a live concert or to see a stream of somebody playing at home or do a virtual guitar lesson, right? So they won't go away, but live streaming will become more important than before. Live streaming is a multi-billion-dollar industry in other fields, in gaming, in other entertainment. It's about time that music catches up, and classical music specifically has always been technology reticent. It's always been very conservative, right? And this is about to change, and it's in the process of changing right now. So if you are taking my advice and you know, spending some time getting better at this, you will have an advantage in the future, right? And you have to always continue learning, obviously, but I hope that this helps. All right, so let's see some questions. I know that we're almost coming up on time here, and I can't be too late, but yes. Okay, so what is the blue USB mic model? I didn't have a blue mic. I had, the one that I showed you was Blue Yeti. It's not great. It's a little overpriced. I don't actually recommend that one for guitar. That's better for speaking. But any USB mic that's between $50 and $150 is gonna do the trick. How useful can softwares like Logic Pro, etc., be for students and professionals alike? What can we do with them? Can we write and arrange music? No, you can basically edit video and audio. Akash said it. It's a DAW, like Reaper, Audacity, etc. So it's an Apple-only DAW that you can use to clean up noises. You can change your volume. You can add effects. You can cut if you're doing recordings. You can do professional level cuts. Shantanu Dahia says, what kind of treatment can we do to our recording room to eliminate noise? Ooh, big topic. Not gonna have time to get into it too much, but generally in pop music, you want to have as little resonance as possible. In classical music, you want to let the room resonate with the instrument. However, in your own home, your room probably sounds pretty bad. Not because there's anything wrong with your room, it's just it's not supposed to sound good. That's not what that room is for. You don't live in a big church, probably. You don't live in the kind of room that has a nice acoustic. And even now, I have a pretty barren room, which has a lot of acoustics, but it's not beautiful acoustics. I can't show you right now, but it's just kind of metallic reverb, right? So it's if I let my room ring and sound to a point I'm guilty of not isolating enough, then you might get the wrong kind of reverb on your sound, and make it a little harsh or annoying, right? So generally, there are a couple of things that you can do if you want to eliminate the reverb. You can put panels on your walls and on your ceiling, especially. You can have curtains, thick curtains, maybe even thicker than these, and you can bring the microphone a little closer to your guitar. You don't want to get too close for a number of different reasons. Proximity effect is one of them, but also the you don't want to basically go over start peaking because your gain is too high. You might have to turn your gain very low if you have your mic very close. But generally, you can get your mic a little closer to the guitar, put things on the walls and on the ceiling. But you don't want to take the resonance completely away That's an ugly sound for classical music. That's more of a pop sound. In the pop world, they would take that off and then they would add artificial reverb afterwards. If that's what you want to do, that's good. That's great. But be aware that having a really dry room is actually has a psychological impact on how you play, and it might make you play faster and place maybe even more emphasis on legato than we already do. So it might work well for you, it might mess you up. It's just important to keep in mind that it will have a difference on how you play, right? So do it in moderation. Don't get too carried away with it. Okay, you can record ambient noise before the recording and use any audio. Yes, any audio editing software to eliminate that frequency from your recording. Raktim, you are clearly very well informed. That is absolutely true. You might know more about this stuff than I do. Sorry in that case if this live stream was really basic for you, but yes, that is true. You can do, what is it called? Reductive editing, deductive editing, something like that, which is basically you record the ambient noise and then you record yourself playing, and then you use the ambient noise recording to take that out of your own playing. It's really cool stuff. All right. Nandini says, I have a question regarding teaching. Do you play duets with your students virtually? I would love to play duets with my students, but we're finding it a bit difficult with the lag. I'm also finding it difficult to teach concepts which require playing along with my student. Ideally, I would love to do this, since playing together would enhance the learning pace further and increase confidence and security in learning. How do you teach virtually the things which require you to play along with your student? I don't. I don't. It's really hard. It's possible. It's possible. There is a thing that some people have used successfully in the past. It's called I think it was called Jackrabbit. No, Jack. What was it called? Is it Jackrabbit? No. Does anybody know? Jacktrip. Jacktrip. There we go. Jacktrip is called. Jacktrip is a software that it's really difficult to set up, but it allows you to do basically lag-free audio communication. You need a really good internet connection. You need to be geographically pretty close to that person. It would be really hard for me to do it from here to India, for example, just because the speed of light takes long to cross the planet. But it allows you to connect two computers in audio only, without video, pretty well, pretty close. But in my experience, I've tried it and I've not been able to play without the lag. Generally, you want your lag to be below 20 milliseconds. 12 is considered sort of the golden ratio. But yeah, you want about 12 milliseconds of lag, and that's really hard to accomplish. Most software that we would use, even the best quality that you can possibly get on Zoom, best internet connection quality, will still take you like to 100 milliseconds lag or more, right? So it's not really possible right now with the infrastructure that we have. Jacktrip is possible, but it's really difficult to set it up correctly, and I've had mixed results with it. So yeah. Jacob Collier did an online duet, but it's very difficult to execute, I believe. Yes, Jacob, my colleague from Royal Academy of Music, my bud, did that. Yes, and a lot of other people did. It's possible. It's just really difficult. That's exactly it. Both parties need to have a really good connection, and you need to set it up using something like Jacktrip. It's really hard. I wish it were a little easier. Maybe I think some sort of solution might come up with it. Becomes a little easier in the next few years. But right now, I think your best bet is Jacktrip. There's also Lola, but there's no way to get access to Lola. Lola is
Yeah, I know Lola. Yeah, actually, at my college. But yeah, I mean, what I'm missing a lot right now is playing duets with my young students, and I'm also, I would like to be able to explain concepts like rhythm to them by playing along with them and helping them with that. But I understand we don't have the infrastructure now. But Lola, I think at the Royal College of Music, I just finished my master's there. They had that, and we did a demonstration together of the students and the teachers. And it's really excellent for people who want to perform together and practice together. Yeah. That's really great, but I don't think we have the infrastructure now, right?
No, we don't. In my paper, I went over Lola a lot, and I spent a lot of time trying to analyze what it would take. And it's just not feasible. Both the internet connections that are available to most people and the hardware required to make it work are just incredibly difficult. Yeah. So
I would love to read your paper, by the way. That it sounds really interesting what you wrote about.
I'll send it to Vera, and she'll forward it to all of you.
Thanks. Even I'm studying performance education, so I'm really interested. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. By
Thanks.
the way, again, it's not a dissertation. It's a paper
That's
that I wrote
okay.
in one semester, so it's like
Still,
don't
I'm
expect the
really
sort of
interested.
book quality level. But I
No.
did do my research, so yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify for everybody else, thank you, Nandini, for the question. Just to clarify for everybody else, LOLA is, it stands for low latency, just low latency video communication software. And it's a technology developed at the University of Trieste in Italy. And it's connected to, you know, a lot of universities have LOLA capable studios around the world, but you need a dedicated internet connection, generally at least 1 gig symmetric, so 1 gig upload, 1 gig download, to make it work, and a lot of technology on each side to make it work. So it's really a way to contact two studios, to connect two studios, not really to connect people's houses, right? And again, when you get into actual video and audio performing together without lag, the speed of light starts to matter, which is incredible. So it starts to matter how far you are from that person, to the point that you would be able to do something with somebody in India easier than you would be able to do with somebody in the US, just because the light literally takes longer to go both ways at that distance, which is incredible. We're coming up on like the limits of physics, right? But that being said, yeah, so it's possible to do duets, but extremely difficult at this moment. Yeah.
Thanks for answering my question.
No, my pleasure, Nandini. All right. Yep, some people were talking about the duos. That's true. And Rock Team says, I thoroughly enjoyed this workshop. Thank you, Rock Team. Oh, hi, Ritu Paban Katoki wrote me a message. I remember you, right? We did a lesson in didn't we do something? Yeah. It's nice to see you again. Hi. All right. I hope I get to see you again at some point very soon. Maybe we can do some lessons sometime if you're interested. So yeah, by the way, I do teach private lessons as well, and of course, I'm super active on Tonebase right now, and I do up to 4 live streams a week. I had one this morning. I have 2 more the next 2 days. Usually, it's not me. It's just me interviewing other people. Sometimes, though, I do solo workshops as well. And actually, this Sunday, I'm going to I'm going to teach a virtual masterclass, which is basically taking people's recordings that they've sent in and giving them advice as if we were doing a masterclass, a regular masterclass. But in general, you know, I've not really been active too much on my own doing live streams outside of Tonebase, just because that's taking up such a huge chunk of my life. But I will, you know, I still, obviously, I'm still active on all my social media. If you want to check it out. I haven't really posted much since the beginning of the pandemic. It's been a bit of a psychological change for me, because I used to post about travel and concerts mostly. It was 90% of what I posted was travel and concerts. And guess what's not happening right now? Travel and concerts, right? It's not good, because I'm doing a lot of content. I've been producing so much content these past few months, and I've not been publishing it much, but I've just, you know, taken a time to grow. That's how I know all the stuff about streaming now, right?
GFI TV. Guitar Federation of America.
TV. Yes, I was in GFA TV as well, from this very room, talking about right hand preparation. Yes, technique. All right, yeah. I know we've gone a little over time, and I do have to stop pretty soon, just because I need to go to sleep. I have a live stream pretty early tomorrow. And actually tomorrow I'm interviewing Renee Izquierdo, and we're doing a public workshop. And that's what we're doing. Is normally the workshops are just for members. Some, like the one that I mentioned by my friend, are for everybody. But the one tomorrow is actually going to be extra public. Not only is it going to be for everybody, it's also going to be live streamed on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram at the same time. And we've never tried to stream the 3 things at the same time, but we will. If you guys have like one more question that you want to do via the mic, I don't know. I feel like I wanted to answer more, but there's just so much to cover that I didn't really have time in the 90 minutes. So if somebody has a burning question, let's take one more. If not, that's also fine. But yeah, I wanted to thank you, Veda. Feel free if you want to unmute yourself, but not only you, Veda, but anybody who has a question. But I wanted to thank you so much for you know, inviting me. It's great to see you again, and all my friends from India, some that I've never met, some that I have met, and hopefully all of which I will meet at some point in the future.